Jeff Jarvis, welcome in Holland here at the next web conference. In your keynote you mentioned twice that you were a hypocrite. First because you published a book in print. What else makes you a hypocrite?
I can't remember what I said in the conference. What did I say?
You said you were a hypocrite because you printed a book and you didn't link it and make it searchable for everything and open it up. But you printed it on paper.
Because I wanted to make money, and because the book industry still operates, and I have a kid going to college soon, and it's expensive. And publishing companies bring value still, bring editors and promotion, and the fact that I'm here in Amsterdam is because the publishing company sold the book here, and so there is still value. I argue in my book that middlemen are dead unless they can add value. And as long as publishing companies and agents can add value, they'll still be around.
Okay. Is Google a good example for any business?
Most any business. But the book isn't really about Google. It's about the changes in the world and trying to figure that out. And I use Google as an example, as a model of that. And some of the lessons may be applied very differently. For example, Google makes platforms and networks that enable other businesses to succeed, and it thus succeeds with less cost and less risk much faster. That's a good model for many companies. How could an auto company be a platform? Well, it could maybe rent out its time to enable other companies to build on top of it for less cost and less risk. Google also releases products as betas, saying that they're unfinished and incomplete, and they ask the public to help them finish it. Now, I don't want to drive a beta car, I will fully confess, but I do want the car company to be more open and more collaborative, and that's a lesson from Google. And there's lessons like that.
That's also an example with the restaurant you named. You want your food cooked by the chef, but you want other people to comment on the menu.
Yes, I want the chef to be smarter and more inspired by ideas from the dining room, from the wise crowd that hangs out there. They have to be smart and have good taste because they came to my restaurant. So if I find out more of their ideas, in the book I talk about a site called Epicurious, which runs recipes in the US from a magazine called Gourmet. And those are authoritative restaurant recipes. In fact, so much so that some years ago I came to Holland to try to buy a recipe site that was here because it had the recipes of the people, and we didn't have those. Well, what happened after that was that Gourmet and Bon Appetit, these two top magazines in Epicurious, added the option for people to comment on the recipes. And what happened was that people came in and they would make the recipe, and they would come back and they'd say, well, I tried it again, and I replaced the water in a cake recipe with coffee, and boy, it was so great. And somebody else would come on and say, well, yes, that was great, but a little too strong, I used a little more water, and so on and so on. Well, that effort they were going to was actually quite generous, and it improved the recipe for everyone using it. And anyone can decide what they want to make out of that, but I think that the idea of listening to your wise crowd is important for any business.
Yeah, I think many readers of my blog would want to know what if you had any contact with Google and what Google thinks about your book.
I chose when I wrote the book not to talk to Google. Because I'm not really writing about a book about Google, it's a book about change. The story of Google has been told, and I think in some measure, even the Googlers don't know why they do what they do. It's so much a part of their DNA and part of their soul.
The internet is Google.
And yes, and Googlers are Google, so thus Googlers are the internet. Because they do understand the internet at the base of their spine. So I wanted to try to interpret their actions and learn from that. Also, I am positive about Google Book. I didn't want to say that out of any relationship whatsoever with Google. I wanted to be independent. Now, after the book came out, I went out and visited Google in Mountain View at the Googleplex and gave a book talk, which was a little scary because here I was in a room with geniuses who knew exactly how full of crap I was, but they were too nice to say that. So I think there is an opportunity to learn from what Google says.
So who's gonna eventually get the power of the flow of information that Google is providing, you think, eventually in the future?
I think we all get the power of the flow of information, and that's just the point. Google's links give it back to all of us. Google's key insight was that they couldn't catalog the whole web as Yahoo tried to do, that they had to trust us to determine what's most relevant by our links and our clicks. And then they feed that information back to us. They give us back the wisdom of the crowd, and so I think that that's essentially ours. Now it's up to us to use those links wisely and to take advantage of the links when we get them. And it's up to Google to help fight the spammers, the evil spammers who try to game the system.
Okay, many publishers in old media think Google is evil. You also mentioned in your presentation, your keynote here, that Google is a bit evil. It's not evil, a bit. Especially in the US. What did newspapers do wrong?
Newspapers tried to protect their past rather than build the future. And that's understandable, I guess, because they had great businesses and they were full of power and great position.
But you are a journalist also. You
Yes.
are a journalist
And
also.
I give myself partial blame for that because I was part of a newspaper company for many years, or more than one company, and I didn't get enough change accomplished. That's why I left and started teaching. So they didn't change enough. They've had a lot of time. They've had 20 years since the creation of the internet, 15 since the commercial browser, 10 since the beginning of Google and blogs, and now at the last minute we're seeing last gasp efforts to try to save newspapers. Well, it's not going to work because they needed to reinvent themselves, and they didn't. So newspapers are going to die, a lot of them, but in that void, I think we'll see new entrepreneurs and new players come and fill the market demand for journalism.
Because journalists can be a teacher. You went to become a teacher also. Journalists can become community managers, like myself. Is that the future of journalism?
I think it is. At City University of New York, where I teach, we have all the students do journalism in all media, video as you're doing, and audio and blogs and live blogging and live video from the Nokia phones. We also obviously teach the eternal truths, the eternal verities, we call it, of journalism, of fairness and accuracy and completeness. But they also need to learn business because we were bad stewards, bad caretakers of journalism. And they need to learn a new relationship with the community. They need to learn to be collaborative. And that's very hard for journalists because we were so used to this one-way world, but absolutely the future is necessarily collaborative and cooperative.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's going to happen when Google buys Twitter tomorrow?
I think that Google didn't understand the live web very well. Their content needs to kind of ferment like cheese and wine before Google learns it, whereas Twitter is very live. So I think it would bring a sense of live into Google and into search. And I think we'll just find ourselves with a smarter search if that happens.
Do you think that would be a great development for our world, for the media world we live in? That Google, the monopoly, buys the little boy in the class without the money?
Google bought Blogger, and Blogger had changed the world and opened up publishing to all of us, but it's now joined by Movable Type and TypePad and all kinds of other services. Google doesn't own blogging. Twitter's success is the fact that it is a platform with an API that enables others to program to it, and Google has the sense to continue that, so many companies can start on top of it. And so no, I think that it's hard to buy companies and keep them going, and Google's failed in some. It bought a Twitter clone a while ago, and it didn't work for them.
Jaiku.
Right, Jaiku and Yahoo and AOL have bought and ruined plenty of companies. So it's hard to buy a company and continue to succeed. But I would hope that if Google does buy Twitter, that it could be smart enough to leave it alone.
Okay, one of our readers would like to know from you via Twitter if you have any regrets about the Dell Hell commotion.
I have one regret about Dell Hell, which was that if I knew that my Dell post was going to be such a cause celeb, I might have been a little more temperate in my language. I was pretty fierce and strong and used bad words. But maybe it wouldn't have had the impact. Importantly about the Dell Hell, I was not an influencer at all. I didn't write about computers. The message was influential because other people agreed with it and said, yeah, me too, my Dell sucks. And so maybe it needed to be that intemperate, I don't know. But sometimes when I met the people at Dell, I cringed a little bit because I was a little nasty.